Hey, welcome to the AI Automation Alchemist podcast. This is your host, Ray Ortega, and I'm so happy today. I got a guest on the show, and we are going to talk to this person who is really phenomenal. Someone who I follow on TikTok who does a phenomenal job at creating videos that really speak to what's going on in the tech industry today, especially in the world of AI, automation, enterprise, SaaS products, things like that. And so I've watched her videos over and over again on TikTok. She has so many of them. And her name, for you guys that are listening or watching, is Kyler Cheatham. So Kyler Cheatham, she is a technology executive, content creator, enterprise IT strategist who focuses on demystifying the ERPs, the AI, and the enterprise software for business leaders and tech teams. She also has been a global Women in Tech AI speaker and has been recognized with awards such as the 40 Under 40 and the 2025 Global Prestige Award finalist mention. She leads performance and enterprise tech initiatives at The Confluential, where she is the founder. And lastly, she has a TikTok channel, like I said, that is getting amazing traction for her comedic and realistic views on enterprise tech, AI, and digital transformation. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get Kyler here started. Let's go.
The most real and relevant resource on AI and automation. AI Automation Alchemist Podcast, sponsored by Grata Software.
Hey, Kyler, how's it going?
Great. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
I really appreciate you coming on the podcast because obviously I've been watching your videos on TikTok and they're probably one of the most amazing videos. I feel like I could share a lot of the situations that you talk about there. And so tell me a little bit, how did you start the whole TikTok situation?
Yeah, I just saw it first as a platform for me to, come on and vent about a lot of what my clients were experiencing, and a lot of, really of the corruption I was seeing happening within the SaaS industry. And I always call it my accidental TikTok following. I never really, thought that that would be something that I would find my little corner of the internet that was so interested in those types of scenarios. And then, of course, when I pretend to be systems or our IT role plays, those always are a fun way to just showcase what actually is happening in corporate IT and how can we make it better.
So let me ask you this, because I mean, people are meeting you for the first time, some people on my podcast, but other people may already know you. But tell me a little bit about like who you are and, what's your background and how did you get into this field?
Sure. I've been in the technology field for 20 years now. Started my career there and really kind of grew up there and really kind of fell in love with the complexity of more enterprise systems, the kind of the puzzle piecing, putting everything together and building a really good system architecture, and has built a consultancy and an agency out of that specializes in really heavy industry. So when I kind of peeled off and did my niche boutique agency, I wanted to focus on the hardest of the hardest technology implementations. So that to me was complex manufacturing. When I got into that space, because, I am agnostic in just the fact that, we don't get paid by any sort of technology provider or anything like that. I had the liberty of being able to say whatever I wanted, without any sort of NDAs or fear of kind of retaliation on the business front, and started kind of just talking about it more in the community about what I was seeing and really becoming that advocate for businesses to really own their own technology strategy. There's so many sneaky ways that they really lose the keys to some of their biggest assets. And that's been something that I just really feel as though as a community, I feel strongly and passionately that if we talk about it more and there's more awareness, that we can really buck that trend of letting big consulting or big vendors take control of our overall system architecture and ecosystems.
I agree 100%. I mean, I used to talk to some other competitors, in this industry, we're all competitors, but there's like so much work to go around. We're not really kind of all helping each other out, working around certain things. And they keep saying the big box tech companies, right? They call like Deloitte the big box tech company or IBM. When you're dealing with some of the customers that you're talking to, your stories that you tell on your TikTok, they're very specific and they're very accurate. How much of that, when you experience that stuff, like how often does that happen in the projects that you're working on?
I mean, they happen all the time. That's why usually, of course, we're always, proprietary to our clients and making sure that we're not, I'm not putting their situations on there, but I will, allude to situations that they're in. All of the things I've talked about on my TikTok channel, I've experienced with, big, as you say, big box tech, or big box consulting. So those are, very real.
Yeah. Why do you think companies continue to go to those big boxes? Because I'm sure they know at some point.
I see, in my experience, the investment in the brand name. They feel like that's like an insurance policy to make sure that their progress is effective or they're able to see a return. It's almost like, hiring a big time lawyer, right? When the stakes are on the line for criminal defense or whatever you're working with, you're going to go to the person that you feel like does the best job when the stakes are high. And I really don't feel like they know on the technology side. SaaS is still relatively new. I know it's been around for a long time, but I think the way in which the business model has now become so aggressive and so pushy, that wasn't something that we saw in the tech golden age of the 90s, right? And a lot
Yeah.
of the things like data blocking and a lot of just the other really corrupt type of businesses that we've seen kind of grown up is something that I think the average enterprise is just unaware of what they're actually locking into. So I think they see hiring those consultancies as almost hiring that advocate to kind of fight for them when it's absolutely the opposite. And they don't understand the underbelly of the financial kind of messiness that's involved with like a bigger SAP, a bigger Deloitte, Accenture, those types of things, how those are actually funded. And those technologies that are recommended may or may not be the best choice for your business. It might be the best choice
Yeah.
for their bottom line.
Exactly. In fact, you talk about one specific story in one of your TikToks. You talk about a lawsuit between Deloitte and some other company. Can you elaborate on that?
Is it
On kind of that
Zimmer
story?
Biomet? Is that the one?
Something like that. I remember
Yeah.
it was a major lawsuit because of the change controls and all that kind of stuff.
For that specific one, they always label these as like big SAP failures, and they rarely have to do with the technology ever, for the most part. Software, especially on an enterprise level, it will function how it's going to function. And if you need to kind of bend it, I don't recommend bending it till it breaks. But if you need to customize some things, you can possibly do that. But it's really like the way it's implemented. So in that specific case, what happened is they're a medical device company. They're manufacturing core systems they wanted to consolidate. They had JD Edwards, which it's hard to get people off JD Edwards because it's honestly a very good product. Oracle just doesn't really want to sell it anymore, right? It's not
Yeah.
as profitable for them. So a lot of times they're pushing people off of it. It's the same old story that we see a lot with the modern ecosystem of like, hey, we have 7 different systems and we kind of don't know which one's real at this point. And our data is all over the place. Like, how can you help us make one single source of truth and be more efficient? Then Deloitte recommended SAP. They went in to implement it, and there was some, messiness between the executives that already had a relationship with Deloitte, which we see a lot of times, that system integrator that kind of tries to sneak in the door with a low ball offer until they say, it's 6 months into the project, hey, you didn't tell us all of your requirements. And so we weren't able to scope this correctly. And then we need to charge you X amount of millions more because you didn't tell us what we needed to know. When really that's not the case whatsoever. That means that essentially that partner didn't do an effective discovery, right? Will projects change? Will they be rescoped? Yes, for sure. Not 51 times, right? Like
Exactly.
that's, excessive in that type of thing. So long story short, they ended up failing at go live. They went live with a ton of defects. It was an absolute mess, very embarrassing for them. And they actually took suit against Deloitte saying like, hey, you misrepresented your experience with SAP. You guys didn't really know how to do this. And we felt like we were lied to in the sales process and you breached our contract. To which Deloitte came back and said, in our contract language, we don't take any liability for your project, which is true, right? That's why contracts are so important in these types of conversations. You have to know what you're signing, or it's not going to be something that's effective. And so that's really the long story of that conversation. We'll see how that plays out in court or litigation or anything like that. But it's definitely a very interesting suit in the fact that it got so bad that they ended up suing Deloitte, which most of the time, right, what we see in those situations is that they're going to settle. Deloitte's going to, give you your money back, or they're going to do something like that. And they're going to slap you with an NDA and be like, hey, you can't talk about this. You can never tell anyone that, we messed up so bad on this process. And the business is like, whatever, right? They're tired at this point. They just want their money. They just want to get on with their lives. But they really went for it, which I think is great. I think it's very healthy to hold people accountable. We'll just see how that plays out on the contracting side.
So in this podcast, this is called the AI Automation Alchemist, right? We focus on AI and automation. How do you see in your current work, how much AI is being implemented in what you're doing?
Well, we build custom agents for our clients, and they're customized to whatever they need the agent to do. We work with a lot of AI on that front. I think it's, a very broad term that sometimes it's hard to like drill down and what that means. But yeah, so we do a lot of work when it comes to more predictive machine learning AI, as opposed to something like Gen AI or collaborative AI. We're more focused on the predicted statistical piece of that.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I keep telling people that machine learning, it used to be called business intelligence, right? Machine learning. It's just now everything's just all encompassed in the words AI. Everyone's just using AI for everything. In your experience, because AI and automation, people tend to like bring those together as well, right? Like the reality is, for many years we've been automating stuff, right? And then now with AI, we're putting that together, and now everything's all AI, right? Are you doing more back-end business intelligence? Is that kind of what you're saying?
It totally depends on like the needs of the clients, which is like an annoying consultant answer. But sometimes, a lot of times, that's a very real misconception in the industry is, do you need AI or do you need business intelligence? Like, what does that exactly look like? I always, when we go into an organization, encourage people to name it something different. Whether you're doing like the Project Flintstones and you have Wilma, that's your predictive lens. And then you have, Bam Bam, that's collaborative. And then you have, Fred, who's generative. So that way you name it like a completely different thing. So people are clear on like what workflow or what even results they're trying to produce. Because I think a lot of times when we go in and just say AI, that's like walking into a grocery store and being like, I want food. Well, it's like, yeah, obviously. Like, but what type of food do you want, right? So that's a big piece that we do see a misconception of. Do you actually need an autonomous vehicle or an autonomous crane, or do you need a business intelligence suite that's going to help you get better observation for all of these different systems?
What's your opinion on autonomy, full autonomy?
I mean, oh gosh, it depends on the situation. I know, right? I think autonomous is great in the fact that if it's a safety issue, like for example, like, if you're seeing, for us, that's a big need and a big objective in complex manufacturing is like, hey, we have this area that we're seeing a lot of incidences happen. Could we potentially build an autonomous crane that just works within this area and there's no actual humans? But I think people like misunderstand the variations that you have to kind of code around that. Like, for example, if we have like a big robot arm that comes in, it's welding, right? Like the robot arm can't understand if there's going to be a person, if Steve's going to fall in the middle and be, welded shut, right? Obviously, huge safety issue. Or if Steve, the operator next to him, sneezes, it's going to shut down the production line, right? And we can't essentially tell the difference between those two things. So I think people see it as like this weird magic, when really it absolutely needs a human operator on all shifts, right? Even if you have totally dark manufacturing, there needs to be some sort of operator that's able to have some sort of mechanism to either override it, or most of the time it's restarting it, right? Because most of the time you're not going to risk it dropping a pallet on your human resources. That's a problem, right? An expensive problem and a dangerous problem.
Would you say your position, because are you more on the strategic thinking side, or you're more on the technical side when you perform, your work?
Well, we spend both. Obviously, our engineers are much smarter than myself when it comes to, knowing what actually goes into hard coding things. And with the size of the businesses that we work with, because we work with enterprise level and above. So usually the best fit for us is 1 billion in revenue and above. We've got a lot of different parts working. So it's less about like the actual system and more about like what is the architecture it needs to integrate with. So when we do this strategic work, that's mostly where my experience is most valuable. Like, hey, we've seen this before, we've seen this before. And then our engineers are over here being like, yeah, that's possible, that's not possible type of situation.
What made you get into this kind of field? I mean, like what, because I mean, you seem like you're very passionate about it, but so like, why did you get into this to begin with?
My mom, when I was growing up, always called me a squeaky wheel. She was like, you physically, like spiritually on that level cannot handle like injustice, right? So like, I think when I found, my love for more enterprise systems, bigger systems of how it cross collaborates, I love being in that workshop where we figure out that, oh my gosh, we've been duplicating these processes. It's like, well, we have to reformat this report to send to accounting because this is how they need it. And then accounting's like, wait, you format that report because we unformat it. Like we take 8 hours to undo what you do. And if we would have just talked to each other in that situation, much easier said than done, right? But those are some of my favorite pieces to be involved with. So I really got involved with the enterprise system, but then at the same time saw these businesses that are not Pepsi, not, ExxonMobil, that are being completely taken advantage of because they don't honestly know what they're
Yeah.
signing. And so that's where kind of my advocacy, silly TikTok videos got in the works of, that side of my system. When it comes to the AI agents, I would say, our junior team really drives those. They have such a great pulse of what our clients need and then building out that in a co-developing way, right? What does the end user need and how do we make sure that we do develop that on top of the platform that they already have? So I would give that credit for bringing us into kind of that realm to them, saying like, I can build this, I can, do this, and our clients being brave enough to say like, let's try something new.
I agree. So I have a developer, one of my main developers that works for me. He like this new OpenClaw that came out. He shows up to the office. He's like, "Oh my God, I can figure out how we can do all these automated things with our business." And he's like all excited. I'm like, "Hold up, man, hold up. Like like we got several things we got to take care of first before we start going crazy on this thing." Do you in your business, because you're also an entrepreneur because you're a partial owner of your company, right? You're a
Yeah. Oh,
co-founder
well,
or you are the founder?
I am the full owner, Ray.
Okay, you're the
Okay.
full owner. Okay. All right. So in that light, how much are you automating within your business? Because I ran into a situation where I hired a coach. This was about 2 years ago.
Mhm.
And like I was explaining I forgot what it was. He was trying to coach me on business in general. And then he asked me, he's like, "How much are you automating within your business?" And I'm like, to be honest with you, I don't think I'm automating anything.
Yeah.
And he's like, "So you're doing it for everybody else."
Yeah.
He's like, "But you're not doing it for your own business." Are you running that kind of similar situation?
I mean, I think it's always like the plumber with the leaky pipes, right? You put so much energy into making sure that your clients are successful that sometimes we can be an afterthought. But I also think, we have a lot of internal things that we've tested on automation, but we could definitely do a lot more that we don't do right now because most of again our time is spent doing that for other people. So hopefully, as we build out our internal team, able to really kind of possess or clean our own kitchen, if you will, that we're
Yeah,
able to
absolutely.
get in there. But I totally hear that business coach. I'm sure he would say the same or she would say the same thing to us.
Yeah. So I do have this one question because it comes from one of your videos
Okay.
because you call yourself public enemy number one of overpriced SaaS.
Yeah.
Explain.
Yeah, they always hate to see me coming. No, we sit alongside bigger consulting firms like Deloitte and Accenture all the time, IBM, as the client advocate in the room. I'm hard on the people that are not doing good work in the industry. I have a lot of great vendor friends and colleagues that do really, really good work, but that's going to depend on what we recommend for the localized team, for the support team, because you could have the best, most shiniest, beautiful system in the world. But if your support team is terrible, then we're not going to recommend that. There's only so much that
Yeah.
you can do. It's absolutely takes a village to implement a big software system or a big AI initiative. So I call myself that, in the fact that I'm always going to be the one, or our team, our entire business is always going to be the one that calls out the software or big system integrator in the room. Like, for example, we had, a conversation not too long ago with a system integrator that was trying to interview our client. And they're like, hey, we've got 30 years industry experience, blah, blah, blah. And the person had just come on as a contractor for that bigger system integrator. They themselves had 30 years industry experience, for certainly, but they've never worked with the bigger system integrator team before, right? And that's a lot of times how they can like bait and switch this industry experience. And that's just an example of things that, like, that's fine. All of that's fine as long as you are transparent about that. Right? That you don't
Yeah.
come in here being like, we're a cohesive team. And it's like, how would you even know that? You've never even worked with these people before. Like, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's certainly, we need a little bit of shot of honesty into our conversation. So that's where kind of I sit in that conversation. But like today, or earlier this week, I was in Florida for the Women in Manufacturing Summit. And, the Oracle team was with me, and a bunch of Deloitte was with me. And so we work together a lot, but I'm always going to be the squeaky wheel. That's just who I am. And that's the way that I want to run my business. So when you say something in a panel discussion about human AI synergy, I'm always going to drill down and be like, okay, but what does that mean for the people in this room, right? So they can take that away and actually implement that into their business, not just like, think of like some red-eyed robot chasing them around their manufacturing floor, right? So
Yeah, it's funny you said that, and you just use that as a reference because you just did a video. I think it's a recent video, but it showed up on my For You. You're speaking in all of that tech jargon.
yeah, right.
You're like masking what's really going on with all
Yeah.
this tech jargon, which I thought was super hilarious today when I was watching that video. So small business. So we predominantly focus on small business, and the AI Automation Alchemist podcast focuses a lot on small businesses, but obviously we have some enterprise as well. So I think all of this information is very valuable. But for a small business, if you were advising a small business on what to do when it comes to automating,
Mm-hmm.
including AI into their workflow, what would you recommend today?
I would recommend just to start with the problem, not the solution. So, like, when you're a small business, you can wear a ton of hats. So I would start by saying, like, what is a major like pain point? Is it that we can't automate marketing emails, right? Like, we send so many marketing emails, it takes our business development specialists days and days and days to spend all these marketing emails or these follow-up emails. That would be where I would start, like by mapping out like what is the hardest thing that you experience, and then let the automation fill in from there. Because when we start with the solution of like, we just need AI because we need to be the business
Yeah.
of the future, like that doesn't mean anything, right? That's a sentence that has no actual tactical range in that. So I would remember, like, take a step back. And I even recommend like have a business coach, have someone come in from another outside view to say like, hey, this is where I've seen a lot of this bottleneck happen. Because even as, as a business owner myself, I often can't see that. Some people will come in and be like, hey, there's where this is going. It's like, I've never even thought of that before. So I would, definitely recommend starting with that problem, bring in that outside help, and definitely get a community of small business, automation. Like, what are they doing? And what could you potentially scale from that?
And we do the same thing. It's really funny because it wasn't until my business hit seven figures that I really didn't understand the whole concept of coaches.
Yeah.
Because I tried to do it myself, and then once I
Oh,
got to a certain
yeah.
point, I'm like, I don't know where to go from here.
Yeah.
And so someone was like, you need to hire coaches, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't need a coach. But then I
I am.
eventually did.
Yeah.
You talk about in some of the stuff, some of the videos you talk about speed to value, um, and you talk about 30, 60, 90-day scorecard or scoreboard. What
Mhm.
is that about?
Yeah. So when we look at implementing new technology, especially an AI pilot or an automation pilot or something like that, we measure it in speed to value. And really, that's going to take 30, 60, 90 days to absorb into the organization. But in a certain business unit. So say we take sales, right? And we're implementing whatever new technology, whether you're doing an agile implementation, you're implementing an ERP there, or you're piloting a new AI or automation agent there in that type of organization. Then we're going to take that to really look at how are you proving value? Ultimately, you should be able to pay for the next business unit implementation with the value that you're getting out of that. Will it be perfect? Absolutely not. No, we don't want it to be perfect because then something would be weird and broken, right?
Yeah.
We want it to have iterations, but you can kind of utilize your own business as using that kind of incubation. And that's what speed to value is making sure you can produce as much value as cautiously possible, right? We're not trying to go as fast as we possibly can so that we do bad work, but we're trying to make sure that we can still prove that this is adding value, whether it's values through efficiencies or actual revenue, then we can, move on to the next area. So that's kind of our methodology when it comes to something like that. I think gone are the days of those kind of big bang implementations because they're so risky, right, to the business at this point. And technology is changing so fast that having that ability to, yes, are you going to implement an enterprise level system? That's awesome. But why don't you try and do it in a way, even if you're not agile? A lot of people get like triggered by that word, and you're doing like mini waterfalls, right? Whatever there's still an approach that you can take that's smaller and more micro than being this whole macro, like trying to force something down someone's throat. Like this week, even I was talking to a business that was like, our parent company is implementing Oracle and everything is about Oracle, and it's just like forcing it down their throats. And like, I get it, right? You're trying to be heavy on change management, but at some point it becomes weird and annoying, okay, that we're talking about Oracle at every like bites and bagels type of situation, right? So I think that's a piece of that, of like having that smaller area where you can say, hey, we did this in sales and it produced this value. And people will be like, oh, okay, maybe we don't hate Oracle. Maybe we just, maybe we actually can utilize this to be a good, benefit to our role in our business.
In fact, that's one of the reasons why we stayed to the small, medium size, like emerging businesses, is because we did a project for Boeing, we did a project for
Yeah.
Airbus, like some of those. And man, I'm sitting there and I'm like, let's get some quick wins here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It's not
they're
quick.
like, they have these timelines. It's like, oh no, we want to implement this. It's going to take 6 months to a year. But then you run into that problem is, how do you prove your value
Yeah.
throughout that project, and how is it actually, how are they proving that what you're doing is very valuable?
Yeah.
Because you mentioned it in one of your videos, like artificial intelligence implementations.
Uh-huh.
You mentioned about the fact that like people aren't seeing the value yet in it, and these are long implementations.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
so
enterprise level AI is wild, right? And I think a lot of what we're seeing big software do is just like scrape the pan for like getting their enterprise level AI. I mean, Copilot is, the absolute poster child of this. It's like, we get that you want us to use Copilot. Like we're clear on that. The difference is we have to know what Copilot brings to the organization, as opposed to you just slapping it on top of any sort of Microsoft suite and being like, hey,
yes.
everybody has Copilot. It's like, well, yeah, but it's just because you forced them to have Copilot,
Yeah.
right? Like
Exactly.
there was no choice in the matter. And I think that's what a lot of times we're seeing now is people scale back from enterprise level AI because it doesn't make any sense, right? It should be. It's not an enterprise resource planning system. Is there AI in ERP systems? Absolutely. You probably have a ton of AI in your organization right now, and you don't realize that it's like my little AI stickers that I carry around. This is actually AI, and like put it on there so that we can calm down a little bit in the fact that we have
Yeah.
plenty of AI in the organization. It's just a question of like, where do we need to spend our money to make the best investment?
No, absolutely. In fact, I have a video I did once that it was a joke, where I was sitting there like, I'm gonna drink my AI coffee through my AI cup. I'm gonna have my AI this. I named everything in my office AI because I
Yeah.
just got tired of the constant, it's AI, AI, AI. And I'm like, some of the stuff we're doing is not even AI. It's just
Exactly.
a plain old workflow with conditions.
Yeah. It's gonna be all right.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, yeah. What do you think? So, I mean, you talked a little bit about this, but how much is the hype affecting your ability to like do the right work in
Yeah.
what you do?
I mean, I think we have a pretty good anti-hype antidote, process, but there's a lot of times, and we've dealt with this our entire career, right? There's always been some new technology that people are like, oh my gosh, like our implementation team, like no offense to Odoo, but that is the bane of their existence. Like when someone walks in, they're like, we love Odoo because it's flexible and it's cheap and it's blah blah blah. Our implementation team is like, oh my god, because they're gonna have to spend all of this time likely unraveling like why Odoo is not a good choice. And just be clear, so it's a great choice for some organization, but not for a complex manufacturer. So just
Mhm.
that's why, a lot of times I'm using that as an example. But I think the hype level is really lost in that executive bubble. Like we see an executive go to CES and they're like, oh my gosh, John Deere has flying tractors, we need flying tractors, why don't we have flying tractors? So all of a sudden they go
Yeah.
back to their head of business systems, their head of IT, their CIO, and they're like, hey, I want us to have flying tractors, we need flying tractors. And that person is really the level set. They either go path A, where they say, absolutely, flying tractor sounds great. We're going to do that. No doubt about it, sir. Like, we're on it. Or they're going to go down path B and be like, yeah, everybody loves flying tractors. What's not to love about that? Except we're on a 30-year-old green screen, sir. So, like, what are you talking? There's absolutely no way that we could,
Yeah.
from an infrastructure standpoint, do that. We can certainly make changes to our infrastructure to do that, but we cannot do that today. If you don't have that CIO or that technical leadership that's in tune with the business from that level, then it's going to trickle down. It's just going to be a hot mess, right? The next level is going to get, we need AI. And the next level is going to get with AI. And the next level is going to, and then all we have these disparate AI systems where we're all putting these ideas into ChatGPT or custom code. And that's not at all what we're looking for from an efficiency standpoint and a clarity standpoint. So I think hype certainly affects it, but there should be a bubble burster on that executive team that says like, yeah, great. That's super cool, but we cannot do that now because we need budget for a new core operating system, or we need budget for sensor technology so that we know where our tractors are flying, right? We need
Yeah.
budget for a plant redesign because they would, crash into everything because our ceilings are too low. Anything like that is really where we're seeing the most spend happen, but somebody's got to do that. And if you don't have that in your organization, that's super dangerous.
Have you found in your business, because I've seen this, in fact, I ran into this last night where I'm talking to a company, someone who works at the company that we're talking to, and this guy is the data guy. And
Mhm.
yesterday we're at this like dinner, and then he starts saying, oh man, I've been vibe coding all these tools and everything. I've been using this thing. And I'm sitting there going like, you're the database guy. Like, why are you building apps for the company, like on your spare time?
Yeah.
And so do you find that happening in some of the organizations you work with where there's somebody internally that they have like doing all these crazy vibe coding things and you're
Oh,
having to
yeah.
like combat that?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. We have many organizations where the business has vibe coders involved in that, and they have no bearing on like or recollection or anything like that or respect, honestly, for the IT production cycle, right? They're just releasing these things into production and then IT finds them and they're like, what is this trash? Right. And a lot, or it breaks and then they call IT and IT's like, I didn't even know you were doing that. Like, why didn't you, let me know? And so I think that's the danger with vibe coding is like, you want to go fast. I get it, business. I get that the IT production takes time. And that honestly was what my speech was on at the Women in Manufacturing Summit is what I call the devil's triangle. So the triangle is leadership, IT, and operations. And if that triangle has a broken leg, you're not going to have a good technology structure because if the business or operations is over here vibe coding a bunch of different things, that's cool, right? That innovation is awesome that you want to try new things. But if you don't understand the risk that you're putting at by like doing crazy things like pushing untested code into production, you have no idea that you could absolutely shut down the business. Like that is a real live thing. And so we see that battle all the time. And it continues to be with, well, IT, it doesn't move fast enough. And then the businesses doesn't understand why. Well, because they have all of these different priorities that they need to, look at. You might think yours is the first priority, but it might not be, right? For the overall enterprise.
Some great sound bites there. That was like because I've been on this kick, this whole vibe coding kick, where I'm not against it.
Oh no.
I'm just like, you guys are just going crazy with it. That's all.
Yeah.
It's, and again, the guy last night that I was talking to, he was just, I'm on Claude and he's on his phone and he's like vibe coding on his phone because he's using the Claude interface. And it was just, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I copied all the data from my company and I put it into Claude and then I had it
Oh
create
my
me a
God.
dashboard and everything. And I'm going, I'm sorry, did you just say what I think you just said? And the company he works for doesn't know. They have no clue he did this. So he's just doing this on his own personal time. Yeah. So speak to that. Speak to that. What I just said.
Gosh. Well, I mean, that sounds expensive. And I will say, okay, right? So this is a classic example of the needs for really understanding technical security and those competencies within the organization. And I always talk about the case with MGM when they had, a huge cybersecurity breach where they, had a ransomware attack, completely shut down their casinos, right? Billions of lost a day, right? So on a much more macro level, but the same sort of behavior from the front lines, right? Of saying, I'm trying to use this as to be innovative, to make good changes, to make good business decisions, but you're doing it in the wrong way, right? And this, this case study in cybersecurity, the hackers called the front desk and said, hey, I need to do an update, massive company, right? Totally normal. I need to push an update to your computer. Can you give me your two-factor authentication? And the, employee at the front desk, sounds right. It's IT on my phone number. So they said, yeah, sure. And gave it to them. And complete ransomware attack, right? Just absolutely detrimented, not only the business, but what they had to pay to get that back. And they didn't even disclose that amount because it's so embarrassing for them, right? And that level.
Yep.
And so the cybersecurity risks are that well-intentioned employee that thinks that they're doing the right thing by the business, making the business better, doing all of these things. But that would show me, right? This employee has no idea from a cybersecurity standpoint, opening up the floodgates by putting company data in Claude, right? You don't even know what Claude does with that data, right? Claude's been around for 2 years. I mean, in mainstream, right? Are they training other AI models on your company's data? Did you just read something like totally proprietary in there that, now your competitors can access? And so that's really why there's such a need for focused cybersecurity training, because I guarantee 90% of the employees that do that don't know that. They think they're using a resource to be more efficient, and they don't understand that it's an absolute risk to the business.
Yeah, and they don't realize that even though you go to the settings, you say, do not use my data. Like, you can't control that.
No.
It's going to be in the database. It's the same thing when we talk about deleting. Oh, delete my data.
Yeah.
You know as probably as much as well. It's always a soft delete.
Exactly.
The data, they never do a hard delete. So the data's still there. It's not going away. And so
absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's a huge piece to it. Like, Samsung put one of their proprietary pieces of code to fix in ChatGPT. They thought that they were doing the right thing, right? Those engineers thought that they were trying to get ideas on how to fix this code, not that they were releasing this, proprietary information and they're going to get fired for it. That would be stupid, right? They have no idea that that's how that's doing. And just to be so clear, even as like an enterprise rep, which I see a lot of AI startups not being able to explain where they're building these. And that's what I see as a huge risk. And you would know better than me for small businesses is like all of these rise of these kind of niche, I'll build you an AI agent, I'll make you super efficient type of thing. It's like, what are you building on? Are you building on Azure? And that's what you're making that on? Or are you building on ChatGPT and you're just wrapping it
Yep.
as an enterprise license. And that's such a huge risk to small businesses. They might not feel that risk right now, but it absolutely is something that they'll have to clean up and pay for in the coming years.
Absolutely. And you're right. It's the wrappers are just no different than you accessing ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, all those ones yourself and just putting your data into it. There's no difference. All it's doing is synthesizing and using an interface to synthesize your stuff before it sends it to the very same channels that you don't want your data in. The question is, how do we get past that?
Yeah.
Because right now it's a fight, right? Everywhere. I'm sure you're dealing with it on the enterprise. I know I'm dealing with it on the small business. Like, it's a constant fight of trying to teach and get people, to understand this. But look, OpenClaw just
Yeah.
came out, what, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? How many people right now are building fully agentic systems in OpenClaw, giving it passwords, security credentials, everything?
Yeah.
It's just crazy. It's just crazy. So rapid fire questions. So we're going to go
Yes.
through rapid fire questions. Yeah.
I'll do my best.
Okay. Yeah. So it's kind of rapid fire, but not. You don't have to give me two words or whatever. Like, you could, like, most overrated AI use case right now.
Agents, AI agents, that they think they're just fairy dust and magic. And that's the agent should be the most boring part of your organization. It's not cool at all. So
Question: do agents learn?
they don't learn in the way that you think that they learn. There's models at which you can train them on, but you have to feed them, right? Like any sort of car, right? You have to fuel them with the right. You can't put like water in your car for gas, right? So
Somebody responded to one of my posts. They were like, agents are learning what I do. And I'm like, agents only have instructions.
yeah,
That's all they have.
again, they're
They don't.
they're
They don't.
task based, right? So
Exactly. Most underrated AI use case.
predictive, definitely predictive maintenance, predictive analytics in our manufacturing space. I think those don't seem as cool because they're not, again, writing emails for you or anything like that, but they are
Yeah.
measuring variances. They're doing a lot that's actually very cool and very efficient and very safe. But a lot of people don't want to invest time in them because they're not like shiny, sparkly type of things.
Absolutely. I agree 100% on that one. One metric that best predicts whether AI will pay off.
Money.
Oh man, you got to see my last TikTok video because that's exactly what I said.
Oh,
I said,
okay, great. I'm gonna go
I
watch
said, I
it.
said, what's the end game here? Like, are you making money? Like,
Yeah.
what's the end game?
Yeah.
So a tool purchase red flag in one sentence.
It integrates with everything.
Absolutely. Oh God, that's a good one. That was a good answer. I didn't even think about that one, but that's actually a really good one because that is true. The one that I hate, the line that I hate right now is it's only going to get better from here. That's always the line. This doesn't work well. It's always going to get better from here. This is the worst it'll ever be. Right? That's the other thing I hear people say all the time. Like agents, like I had a whole argument with someone about agents. This is the worst it'll ever be. Okay,
No.
agents are very simple. It only does certain things. Like
Yeah.
it's not supposed to go beyond that. Automation is a win when
It's task-based. It's a manual, repeatable task. Again, when it's boring, I would say.
Absolutely. I agree with that. One thing every founder should do before paying for another SaaS tool.
Read the contract. Read it
Nice.
with every single word.
Yeah. I was going to say contact you.
Yeah, you could do that too. Always. Yeah. Yep.
It's like contact Kyler. She'll tell you. She'll tell you whether it's good or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Best first workflow to automate in most business. I think you said it earlier.
I would say invoicing would probably be one that I always see as like a low hanging. If you're still sending manual invoicing, then definitely that could be an automation. It just, depends on the size, scope, all those types of things.
I agree. I'm actually really bad at that. I use a tool.
Yeah.
I use Square.
Yeah.
But I tried to automate it, and I tried to automate once, and it put the wrong information in the hourly,
Perfect.
column, and I was like, yeah, can't do that yet. Probably have to agentify that sucker because the tool itself did not work very well for me. A phrase you wish people would stop saying about AI.
Oh gosh, probably the human AI synergy is my one that I can't hear just this week.
Human AI synergy. What is that actually? Human AI
Nobody
synergy.
knows, and that's the point, right? That's what angers me about it. It's nothing. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Prairie dust. A phrase you wish people would start saying instead.
How much does this cost?
Yes. Oh my gosh, that is dead on. So part of one of my fights I've had recently with some people that are using this, like, what's it called? I just said OpenClaw. So
Uh-huh.
OpenClaw, the biggest fight I've had is like, how much are you paying for tokens?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sitting there, they're like, oh, we did all this stuff. There's a guy that literally had like 3 new laptops that he just bought, is running OpenClaw on all 3 of them and everything. And he's posting like, this has taken over 80% of my workload for the day. And I'm going, how much are you spending on tokens? And you bought 3 laptops.
Yeah, exactly. The hardware still costs, right? It still costs. It still
Exactly.
costs. Yeah. And how much will that cost you to maintain, right? Once you have 80% of your workflow, how are you going to make sure that it's actually good work and not garbage, right? So
Yep.
you got, and
Yep.
a lot
Absolutely.
of, and I'll just, say, remember to check your second and third year costs of that, right? Because once they have full control of your agents and 80% of your work, they have full control over what happens when they increase those licenses by 40% year over year. What are you going to
Yeah.
do? Shut down 80% of your workflow? Maybe, but you should really understand what that looks like in the contract. How much can they contractually increase year over year?
So how do people find you? Like,
Yeah.
can they hire you?
Oh, for sure.
That's the
Yeah,
question.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So our firm, again, we have a niche in complex manufacturing. That's where, we work and we do our best work. We do custom agents. So we have like an aluminum rolling agent. We have an agent that's called the Catapult that measures variances across different KPIs in your organization, whether it's like temperature of melting metal or all of that. So that's kind of our agent side. And then we also have IT strategy side. So say you need like a release management or quality management, or you're not really sure like how your IT team should be structured around AI. Does it live in ops? Does it live in data? Do you need your PMO to own it? Do you need your EPMO to own it? We help you kind of structure those. And then most importantly, select your core systems, right? So I always say we are biased. We are absolutely biased when it comes to systems that don't work well for our clients,
Yeah.
right? So we often help our client community figure out, do you need an ERP or do you need an MES? Or do you need a supply chain management? Or do you need a warehouse management? Because again, if you call up your vendor or any SI that sells you those things, they're going to be very clear about what you need, but is that actually what you need, right? And so that's a big part of what we do as well. If you want to find us, you can visit theconfluential.com. It's like a confluence and influence in one word. You can also find me at Kyler Cheatham across platforms. Obviously, I'm on TikTok and then also on LinkedIn. And my DMs are me. That's who answers them. We should probably automate that, but we don't, right? At this point. So you can definitely shoot any specific questions because, as I always say, technology strategy is as unique as your own human DNA, right? Gone are the days where everybody used one system and then, everybody kind of just changes their processes. Businesses in 2026 are too unique for that. I learn about new businesses every single day that I had no idea existed. And they're looking for specific systems that can help them be most innovative. So you're definitely welcome to ask me any specific questions about your system or what you might want to do or all of those different pieces. So definitely check us out. And then, yeah, I think that's pretty much how you find us.
For those listening and watching, because now even iTunes is now doing video podcasts, so now people can see the video itself. Find her on TikTok. I'm telling you, you'll enjoy the channel, especially if you've already hired people to do some of this work and you've run into these situations before. Yeah. It'll sound just like your daily work, and you'll laugh, and then you'll be like, "All right, I need to contact this person."
And then you'll cry.
So,
and then you cry.
And then you'll cry, and then you'll cry. But Kyler, thank you very much for coming on this. I know you're very busy, and also you have a good following on TikTok. You are, by the way, my first guest on the AI Automation Alchemist podcast. So I really appreciate you being here and kicking off the new podcast, which is relatively new, I guess, because we've already done a whole bunch of episodes, but this is the first actual guest episode. So congratulations, you're number one.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm honored. I'm very honored. Hopefully I did it justice, and thank you so much for having me.
You did. Absolutely. Thanks you. And for everyone else listening, watching, definitely like, subscribe, follow whichever channel you choose to watch us or listen to us. Make sure you subscribe, you follow. And again, check out Kyler's company. If you have any other questions or you want to contact her or anything, if you put in the comments any type of questions, we'll make sure we'll send it to her. I'll also add in the show notes all her information so you can click on the links and go to her business and her channel and find her on the internet. So, all right. Thanks again for this episode, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Automation Alchemist Podcast.